there were some inner demons that he needed to conquer here.
Piastri asked so many questions, and Lando had the answers.
It could be a turning point.
Could it though? It was a commanding weekend, but the one that he expected to be commanding at.
But I still think he had to do a lot of things right that he's got wrong this year.
This answer about Lando will be given only on Sunday night at Silverstone, because he has never won back-to-back races.
When George came into the TV pen, he was probably the most worried since we've started asking him about his future.
Can you imagine George Russell and Max Verstappen in the same team?
It'd be box office,
it
wouldn't
would
it?
be, yeah. I think it would be box office.
There are no bigger news in Brazil right now than Bortoleto being 8th in the Austrian Grand Prix.
We really saw something today from Lewis that made me think that maybe there's a chapter's been turned.
Do you think Ferrari need to listen to him more? I think he wanted to one-stop that race today.
Because they're not really fighting at the sharp end. Why don't they just give it a go?
They're so scared of making those calls.
Welcome everyone to the Red Bull Ring for F1 Nation's review of the Austrian Grand Prix. I'm Tom Clarkson, and joining me here in the paddock is F1 correspondent and F1 TV presenter Lawrence Barretto and Brazilian journalist Julianne Cerasoli. Now, we're sat outside McLaren, where the drivers have just walked past after their debrief with the team, and there's smiles all round, and so there should be. What a day for the team after their fourth 1-2 of the season, and what a day for Lando Norris, who took his third win of the season.
Incredible stuff, really. I think Lando came into this weekend under an immense amount of pressure. You could see how tough he took it actually on that Sunday night, actually how then quickly he seemed to get over it. But I think there were some inner demons that he needed to conquer here. And it was helpful that it was a track that he loves, that he's gone well at, that he scored his first podium at, and he commanded this weekend in an incredible way, half a second in quali over the rest of the field. But most impressive for me was the way that he absorbed the pressure from the guy who has appeared to be the one to beat really this year in the championship. And Lando had an answer for everything, to the point where Oscar made a mistake. Not often we see Oscar making a mistake, that lock up into turn 4. It could be a turning point, Tom. It could be a turning point.
Could it though? Because we have seen it before with Lando. Lando said something interesting on Thursday, saying that if he had to pick one racetrack to come to after what happened in Canada, you would have been here. He knew that if there was one race that he really needed to win, it had to be here. And still, what was the gap in the end? Was 1 second? Still,
yeah, a couple of seconds. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it was a commanding weekend, but the one that he expected to be commanding at. That's why I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in Silverstone. If we're going to go back to Lando, maybe not taking 100% out of the car in qualifying and starting behind Oscar, and then the whole thing starting all over again, or if we are indeed seeing the start of a new phase for his championship.
I think we're all agreed that this was vintage Norris, wasn't it? He missed FP1 because Alex Dunn was driving his car, but from FP2 onwards, he's dominated all weekend. Andrea Stella said something interesting after qualifying yesterday. He said Lando is a specialist here in Austria. He's always been good. Do you remember he got his first podium here during COVID? And I kind of think Lando, to your point really, Julianne, which is he came here because he knew, he knows the tricks of this place, doesn't he?
But I still think he had to do a lot of things right that he's got wrong this year. So I think under that pressure from Oscar, I think he did a really good job. He didn't crack at any point, did he? Yeah, okay, he kissed the gravel a couple of times, but like, we've seen him make big mistakes when under pressure. He dealt with turn 1, he dealt with the start firstly really well, he dealt with turn 1 really well, he dealt with turn 3 really well. I appreciate that he is good around here and he should be good here, but after what happened last week, there were even more reasons for him to actually crack again, and he didn't. And so I think the best he could do was win. So I guess maybe it was a lose-lose situation to come here and win, and still people say that. But I just think it was a really good job that he pulled together today.
This was the first time that we've seen Oscar and Lando go wheel to wheel over a prolonged period. Did we learn anything new during that wheel-to-wheel action? I'm thinking of lap 11 in particular, when, do you remember, turn 3, Oscar briefly took the lead and then he got taken back.
Yeah, well, Lawrence was pointing out about what Oscar's mistake in turn 4. For me, it's really impressive that he makes the mistake, so he locks up. he gets too close for comfort with Lando, and he's on the radio apologizing to the team. Maybe they printed out in the drivers' minds what they have to do, McLaren first, and all the papaya rules are all written down in their brains in a way. That's something we've learned. So whatever Andrea is doing is really working, because they're fighting hard, and this time they didn't crash. The same thing didn't happen in Canada, but whatever conversations they had, it really worked. And it's good for us, because they were way clear from the grid. So it's refreshing for us that we are going to have a championship, even though the championship will be between the two of them.
There was one bit of this intra-team battle that I didn't understand, and that was, why did Oscar wait 4 laps to make that first pit stop? I feel that if he was going to challenge Lando for the win today, he needed to pit directly after him the following lap.
So my read of that radio message, where I think he was offered it would be 1.5 seconds delta or 4 seconds, and he chose the 4 seconds, was that it was just his belief that he could close that gap and pass Lando with the tyre offset. That's kind of how I interpreted it, and that was probably based on the fact that he was so racy in that early phase, given that actually all the way up to qualifying he's not been on Lando's pace. So I asked him in the TV pen, were you surprised by how good you were? And obviously he said no, because he's a racing driver and he expects it, but it was odd that he pulled this pace out from nowhere. I know the DRS effect around here is impressive, but I was just surprised at just how good Oscar was.
And Andrea said something really interesting. He said that Lando, so when they were both on the hard tyre, that's when Lando won the race, because they were trying to do the tyre offset, so they are giving this chance to Piastri for him to fight Lando in the end. And then this tyre offset, he said it's 0.2 a lap. Even being 0.2 a lap, Lando controlled this gap, and he controlled with a lot of energy management. There was a lot of talk between him and the engineer, and Andrea Stella explained to us that was down to that, because they knew they had given Oscar 10th lap advantage with that strategy at that point in the race. So they were managing that with Lando and giving Oscar the chance. So the tire degradation is so high here, is to stop. So they were giving the chance for Piastri to try for the win.
But given that the tyre deg is so high here, one of the things I thought was really unusual in that first stint was how Oscar was able to hang on to Lando. You talk about the DRS effect. Of course, you get 3 straights in a row here, but still, I think it's unusual for the guy following to hang on as long as Oscar did. And so although Oscar's got beaten today, I actually think he's going to come out of this weekend feeling pretty positive. The race performance was completely comparable with Lando.
Oh, I think so. I think aside from Oscar's incredible confidence in himself anyway, I think the way he got P2 in this race on a weekend where he hasn't performed so strongly, and the race pace that he showed in the race today, I don't think he's at all fazed by the threat of Lando. But I think the difference is what the confidence Lando would have got from today might make the battle to Zhu's point really exciting going forward, because I think you need both of them operating at their peak level to get more of what we got today. And maybe we'll get it where we have that in that first phase, those first 20 laps, and then we'll get it in the final phase of a race. So yeah, from that perspective, that's how I kind of read it.
And yet again, McLaren have brought an upgrade to this racetrack. Remember, they did it 2 years ago when they made that was kind of the first big step they made towards the McLaren that we know today. And they've done it again. I feel, all of the upgraded suspension and all the changes to the front end of that car clearly have correlated with everything that the simulations have said back at the factory, and they've just done it again. And I think the gap, Lando Norris was 20 seconds ahead of third place Charles Leclerc.
Yes, but also it's very hot here, and we have seen in Miami that when it's really hot, they have an advantage. So it increases the advantage that they already have. Maybe we will be having a different conversation in Silverstone in 1 week. I don't expect it to be very hot in Silverstone.
Hang on, we've got a bit of a heat wave in Britain at the minute.
You're going to be so surprised when you come.
I know, I live in your country, but still it doesn't last that long, and it doesn't reach Silverstone, it never does. but the gap that they showed here, I don't see it happening everywhere. And of course, we didn't have Max. Max is always there as the third element. He wasn't there. And Ferrari, they had issues. They had to do lift and coasting because of brake temperatures, I believe. So that was not the clear picture of the whole championship because of the heat, because Max wasn't there, because Ferrari wasn't 100%. But for the championship, I don't see Max getting any closer, or even George. George is not that far away from Max now, right?
I think the gap could have been even bigger though, because if they weren't fighting each other, imagine it was just one, they were at team orders and they were allowed to just crack on, the gap would have been far bigger. And to Xu's point about Max not having given us that barometer, I think it probably is worth waiting a little bit longer just to see, because obviously Yuki just had another really difficult race, so we didn't really get a proper read of just how good or bad the Red Bull could have been in race trim. But I do think it's just another set of upgrades that they've delivered, that have delivered the numbers they said it would. It's given Lando more confidence at the limit, which is, you know, where he was struggling with a bit as well. So it's just another sign that McLaren are making good in so many different areas.
And I think it's going to show at Silverstone. Both McLaren drivers have said the main difference is through the quick stuff, through the quick corners. What is it? Just look at the next few racetracks we've got coming our way. Silverstone, fast. Spa, fast. Hungary, deceptively fast. Zandvoort, fast. I could go on. This is the moment in the championship where I think McLaren stretched their legs over the opposition. And in terms of the championship battle, how big was today's win for Lando? He's now just 15 points behind Oscar Piastri.
So Lando says that he doesn't really care about what other people say about him. It's mostly about what he thinks about himself and how he rates himself and his performance. And I think he said today when I talked to him in the pen that it's done a lot for that. You know, he's proved to himself that he can get the job done. Look, he only had this circuit to prove itself to. Silverstone will be that next opportunity. To Xu's point earlier, it will be interesting to see whether he can do this in successive weekends now. So, you know, we had Australia, which was great. We had Monaco, which was great. We've had here, which was great. So he's going to have to do it on successive weekends. But I think Silverstone's only a few days away. There's been more Lando fans growing, you know, coming to that race. I think all of that kind of stuff is probably going to make a difference. McLaren have got that fan event in Trafalgar Square. This was like the perfect thing for Lando, I think. So he was going to hopefully arrive there on the crest of a wave for him and his championship fight.
And he's always gone pretty well at Silverstone. I think apart from winning, I think he's finished second, third, fourth, fifth. So it's not like he gets overwhelmed by the occasion.
The problem is that Oscar is very good at Silverstone as well.
He's good through quick corners, actually. He's just like his manager, Mark Webber.
Yes, he is. And maybe we'll see about the upgrades, if the upgrades did really work, because in the fast corners are the only corners in which a car matches them, which is the Red Bull. So we might see at Silverstone if they're going to have Max Verstappen alongside them or if they're going to be only the two of them. But I think this answer about Lando will be given only on Sunday night at Silverstone, because he has never won back-to-back races. So it's a good opportunity.
Good time to start.
Yeah, good opportunity for him for a turning point. Okay, I can do two very good races. I can beat Oscar in a circuit in which he does really well as well. It doesn't depend on me doing well in the circuit. It could be a very, very important weekend for him. No pressure.
That's probably the next thing that he needs to do, isn't it? He needs to go to Oscar Land and beat him there and prove it consistently over the weekend. He doesn't have to do it all the time in every race, but just go to one track and go to Oscar. You know, maybe Spa, where, you know, Oscar's always good in that middle sector at Spa. Just go there, go somewhere and just prove, actually, I can take the fight to you. And maybe you'll start to get into this unbreakable head of Oscar's at the minute.
Now, if you want more Lando Norris conversation, here's my guest on this week's F1 Beyond the Grid podcast, and that is available from Wednesday. And you can also watch our chat on the official F1 YouTube channel. This episode is sponsored by Caldera Lab. That's right, our friends at Caldera Lab are back. And they're here to help any of you guys looking to upgrade your skincare routine in the easiest, most effective way possible. Because most of us want to look a little fresher, right? Maybe even a bit younger. Whether it's getting compliments on your skin or just feeling more confident when you look in the mirror, Caldera Lab can help you get there. Their skincare is made specifically for men and backed by science to deliver real results. And everything they make is cruelty-free and plastic neutral. packed in sleek glass bottles, so it's not only good for your skin, it's better for the planet too. In fact, for every product sold, they remove the same amount of plastic from the environment. In a recent study, 100% of guys using Caldera Lab said their skin looked smoother and healthier. Nearly 97% reported better hydration and texture, and over 93% said they looked more youthful. The standout product in their range is The Good, a powerful serum packed with active botanicals and antioxidants which work hard to protect your skin from stress and keep you looking sharp. There's also the Eye Serum, built for tackling tired eyes and puffiness, and the Base Layer, a fast-absorbing moisturiser with a clean matte finish. No shine, no fuss. It's a complete routine that only takes a couple of minutes to complete. Skincare doesn't have to be complicated, but it should be good. Update your routine with Caldera Lab and see the difference for yourself. Go to calderalab.com/nation and use Nation at checkout for 20% off your first order. Let's talk Ferrari now. They finish P3 with Charles Leclerc, P4 for Lewis Hamilton. They had upgrades on the car, 20 seconds behind Lando Norris at the flag, but do you think this is a shot in the arm for the Scuderia?
Oh, yes. It was a positive weekend for them. They needed a positive weekend. They brought upgrades that did work. It didn't really look like on Friday. They seemed to be nowhere, but the team was giving us the right noises, saying, oh yes, the drivers are feeling comfortable. It doesn't look like it, but it did in qualifying. When you see Lewis so close to Charles, it means also that the car is more drivable. He was nearly second, actually. He made a mistake in turn 6, I believe. So it could have been Lando, Charles, or Lewis and Charles, and Oscar only in 4th position. For detail, it didn't happen. And then in the race, they had this lift and coast problem that they've had before. And they knew they would have to manage that because it has to do with temperatures. And it was so hot today. Did I mention that already? I think I did.
Just like in England.
I really think it's moved the needle for Ferrari, this upgrade that they've brought here. Obviously, we always talk about the floor being the determining factor in those performance steps. And they made 3 different tweaks to the floor. They changed the diffuser as well. And I think the drivers have been calling for several races now for this upgrade. They wanted something to try and help them make the step. And yet, okay, 20 seconds is a significant margin. But I think there was a slight change in body language from both Charles and particularly Lewis this weekend. Again, it's a sample of one this circuit, but it just feels like Lewis is slightly more connected to the car, particularly in qualifying. That's why he felt stronger there. He almost got P2. And in the race, he's still struggling with balance, but he was still P4. So I think that shows that there's actually quite a lot of headroom for when he gets that car comfortable. He said something really interesting to me earlier in the weekend when he said, like, every race he goes to is new for him. And obviously it's not new in the sense of he's not been there, but it's new for him with the new team and the car that he's with. And it is effectively, we have to keep remembering, he is starting from scratch with this team in terms of learning the quirks of how they go about things. And so it might just take the full year before he kind of fully understands it and unlearns all the things he probably has to forget from his Mercedes time to really see the best Lewis. But I think that we really saw something today from Lewis that made me think that maybe there's a chapter's been turned and he's starting to find a breakthrough and setting that car up to his liking.
Setting the car up, yes, but do you think Ferrari need to listen to him more? The radio conversation that we heard about him being happy with the set of tyres and yet them still bringing him in because it was a slightly conservative approach. I think he wanted to one-stop that race today.
You know what? I think Ferrari in a position right now where, because they're not really fighting at the sharp end, why don't they just give it a go, right? And then if it doesn't work out and they go, well, Lewis, we told you to do this, and if you'd done this, you would have finished here, but you've actually finished here because you tried it. What's the big deal? Whereas if they'd gone for it, who knows what would have happened if he'd one stop. We saw Liam Lawson and Fernando Alonso pull it off to great effect. And the strategy they did was going to put him 4th or 4th. There was no other option for where he was going to finish. So I think to that point and where they are particularly right now, start listening to them a bit more, I think. I agree.
The problem is that it's Ferrari. Ferrari is different. So if something goes wrong for Ferrari, they go back like 3-4 spots in terms of confidence on everything. that's why they're so scared of making those calls. You are right. You'll be right for any team. But for Ferrari, they are so scared of making a mistake that sometimes they don't try. And for me, the main problem is that it's never communicated in a clear way to the drivers. So Lewis is like, I don't want to stop. Oh, no, you're stopping. Can you tell him why? And then he's going to stop. Can you argue with him like, no, this is the best because your tires are not going to last because other drivers are struggling. Something like that. Because that will clear the air a little bit.
That's a really good point. I do wonder what the chain of command at Ferrari is, because of course Fred Vasseur wasn't on the pit wall today. He returned to Italy for personal reasons on Saturday evening. And I wonder whether if you are going to roll the dice and go for a one-stop, does Fred have to sign that off, give the okay before the race engineers then put it into action? Or, was there a lack of confidence because Fred wasn't there? I'm just asking the question. I don't know the answer.
I guess it depends on what he's determined are the rules of engagement, which would apply whether or not he is here or not. And that would suggest that maybe he wants to leave his strategy team to it, and he gives them their full backing, and he doesn't want to meddle. We've seen in the past some team bosses getting involved in these kind of things. It's probably a wider discussion, isn't it? Like a cultural decision about how they go about racing rather than like specific moments. I thought, when Fred joined the team, he'd done a good job of changing or trying to change the culture at Ferrari, and I know that's like moving a barge. It's difficult, but I felt like he was making some progress there. So maybe it's just part of the journey that he has to go with that team. But look, they signed Lewis. That's a risk, I think. So they need to go all in with their change or their new path forward, and that's what I'd like to see, because I think everyone benefits when Ferrari are doing well.
Of course they do, and I think if you looked at the press clippings for Ferrari this year, a lot of it has been very negative. So you kind of understand the reticence to roll the dice, but actually they're back up to P2 in the Constructors' Championship. If McLaren are having a stellar season, they'd disappear. They've almost got twice the points of anyone else now, but Ferrari are actually best of the rest at the moment, and actually we should commend them for that.
It's actually funny, if you only hear the stories, if you get to Formula One, you don't see how the championship is, and then you just be reading the stories. You would think Ferrari are 5th in the championship or something like that. They are salvaging a championship, even though they did roll the dice with the car, and that has brought a lot of problems for them. They did roll the dice with that one. It didn't work, so maybe that's even part of the reason why they are so scared of doing any other calls that could cause any more damage. But the thing is, the damage is not that big. What they say in the Italian media is that, okay, we are second, but Red Bull is only racing with one car. We are actually third, and third is not good enough for Ferrari.
Yeah, but you can only race what you've got in front of you, right? So I think they're being incredibly hard on Ferrari, and I think that's probably why Fred, in that press conference in Canada, got so irritated, because he's probably thinking, I'm not doing a bad job on paper, and they've clawed it back. He would have known this upgrade was coming. Give the guy a chance is probably what he's feeling. So look, they've got it. This is one weekend and it's one set of upgrades, and they've got to make sure that they keep bringing upgrades and they keep developing the car, because even though you can't carry it over, momentum helps. So I think if they can keep doing this and they get Lewis, who's operated at a high level again, and Charles keeps doing, because it's third podium in 4 races, but that's good. When the McLarens are dominated, that is a great result.
Now, you mentioned Red Bull being a one-car team. The one car that you're referring to was taken out on the 3rd corner of this Grand Prix by Kimi Antonelli. First up, thoughts on that incident?
I feel for Kimi, really. I think he just got caught out. I think he said he should have adjusted his brake bias so that, for that corner, and he got caught out. And I thought it was really nice of Max to not go after him and not to criticise him. I think he just essentially said all drivers are going to do that at some stage. He's a new driver. He's got world championship, quality material. He's got a really good talent that could deliver. And he didn't kind of go after him. They had a chat afterwards. Kimi explained the mistake. That was that. And I think what was interesting about that particular point is Max probably thought, I would have maybe done that mistake, when he was younger growing up. And he maybe sees a little bit of himself in Kimi. Max, when you qualify P7, and you're in the thick of it into a corner like turn 3 where everyone's bunching up, there is always that risk that you're going to get caught out by it. And actually, he was positioned really well in that corner and actually was on the power and probably would have made up a few places if Kimi hadn't made that mistake.
You do get that concertina effect, I think, at turn 3 on the opening lap because it's I ran the track on Saturday night. It's a really steep uphill there, and I think although the cars are doing more than 200 miles an hour at that point, they are braking ridiculously late. But on lap 1, it's a really tight corner, and I think Kimi was sort of blind behind Liam Lawson at that particular moment, and then he had to jink to the right, and it was a sort of a series of events that led to him crashing into Max Verstappen. It was very revealing what Red Bull do when Max Verstappen is out of the Grand Prix. Okay, Yuki Tsunoda had a very difficult Grand Prix, but he'd also had a very difficult Saturday as well, knocked out in Q1. The time has come, surely, for them to think about needing a 2-car race team.
I mean, I imagine this race is going to make them think about that, given Liam had such a great weekend. You know, he looked good from FP3 onwards. He qualified well. He delivered on that today, you know, and the team did a great job to make that one-stop work. Even Isaac had a good job, and it didn't quite work out for him in the end. I think he said he picked up damage, dropped it, was fine for points, dropped out of the points. So you've got 2 drivers there who are showing that they are performing at a high level. I guess the problem for Red Bull, they've obviously tried Liam, they've made their call on that, so it's unlikely that they're going to move him back in. They, I guess, trying to learn their lessons, so probably don't want to move Isaac in to potentially make him struggle mid-season, not have any backup. So what are they supposed to do, I guess, in the mid-season?
I'm not actually talking about drivers, I'm talking about producing a car that 2 people can drive. I agree with you completely. I think Yuki Tsunoda needs to be given every help and every opportunity he can, but this is so clearly a car that only one driver can drive that I think they've got to look longer term. You've got to have 2. If you're going to win the Constructors' Championship when Formula 1 is so close, you need 2 cars.
I think they have to listen to their tools in a different way. So the tools are saying that the route for the car is the route that Max can drive the car. Max will be able to drive most cars. Max is able to drive because he is so sensitive with the car. Well, we often hear him saying, downshifts are horrible, and after one lap, downshifts are not horrible anymore. And it's probably like 1 degree, and then he can feel that, and other drivers cannot feel that. Because he's got this sensitivity, it's less hard for him, because it is hard for him to drive this car. It's less hard for him to sort of predict what the car is going to do and to take this car to the limit. So whatever the machines are telling Red Bull that is the best way for the car, it's not what normal drivers can do, can cope with, but Max can. So that deceives a little bit the way they develop the car. Because Max is so good and Max deceives it. So maybe they have, so who am I to tell them what to do? The engineers are very clever. But maybe try to listen to their tools in a different way so other drivers can drive. Because it doesn't matter. They will put any other driver there. They will struggle because the car is really tricky and only someone with an immense sensitivity can drive that car.
It would be fascinating to see what a Charles Leclerc could do in that car, or a Lando Norris, wouldn't it? Because the second drivers that we've seen at Red Bull recently are homebred. They've come through the system. All of them absolutely warrant a place in Formula One. But I'm not sure any of the ones we've seen in recent years are what you might call Premiership. You know, there's a lot of Division 1, but I would love to see whether a Charles Leclerc, with his level of sensitivity, just to expand on your point, could cope with it.
Maybe they will need a driver, right? If Max doesn't stay, they will need to roll the dice for that and try to figure out if they're going to become backmarkers with 2 drivers and not having Max, or if other driver can drive the car.
Let's talk about the story coming into this weekend, where George Russell on Thursday said, I'll briefly quote him. He told Sky Sports, "It's only normal that conversations with the likes of Verstappen are going on. Toto Wolff has made it clear to me that I'm performing as good as anybody. That's why I have no concern about my future. But there are 2 seats to every team, and I guess he needs to think who those 2 drivers are." I was surprised that he said that. I think the team was surprised. Lawrence, you are the ultimate news hound in Formula One. Do you think there is any substance to the Max Verstappen to Mercedes rumours? It's been going on now for 18 months, but do you think the current rumours have anything to them?
I think it would be fair to say that Toto and Max, or Max's management, are having conversations. Whether or not that is about him joining next year, in several years' time, they are having conversations about something, because otherwise I just don't see how this would start bubbling up. I think when George came into the TV pen on Thursday and he faces the media, he was probably the most worried I feel like he's come across since we've started asking him about his future. And that was telling, I thought. Then obviously as that day progressed, and I think he then did that Sky interview towards the end of the day, that's when those comments about Max came out. And interestingly, I think up until that point, people were thinking if Max comes in, it would be for George. So it was interesting that George made the point that it would be for Kimi, and those two would be racing alongside each other. Then you put it to Toto. So he asked me in his interview, ask Toto, what's going on. So I put it to Toto, and Toto was like, well, we've got the contracts and the timelines in place, so that makes me think there's probably a contract ready to go. They just haven't put the ink on it at the minute, and that is because Toto is waiting. He's waiting for something. He knows that probably George hasn't got a lot of options elsewhere, that he would love to stay here, so he can probably afford to make George wait a little bit longer. And I think that Max's performance in the press conference when he was asked about his future, where he basically said nothing and wouldn't give anything away, is also telling. Whether that's mind games or not, I don't know, but I just think that this story this weekend, there is something in it. There's got to be something in it. It's just determining exactly what that is.
The thing we don't know is if Max is going to be free or not. I think that's the key question. What does it say in his contract? When is the deadline for this? Because there's a performance clause as in every contract in Formula One. But when does it kick in? Is it in the end of this month? Is it in the end of next month? And where does he need to be in the championship to be able to leave? We don't know that, and maybe that's what Toto is waiting.
The history of Formula One will tell you that really the contracts aren't worth the paper they're written on in Formula One. If someone wants to move that much, money talks, and Max Verstappen will be a Mercedes driver if there is enough of a desire on both sides for that to happen.
Yes, I agree with you, but there's some waiting going on, and what would be that for? Because it would be a lot cheaper for everyone if that wasn't the contract and he was free to go.
I think the most likely scenario probably is not going to be the most interesting one. It's just that everyone is probably going to end up where we think they are. Max staying at Red Bull, George staying at Mercedes, at least for 2026. I actually think the more interesting driver market situation is 26 into 27, because there are so many unknowns next year. We don't know what the engines are going to put, who's going to have the best engine. We don't know who's going to build the best chassis. Actually, you want to be in a position to get out at the end of next year to jump to the team that is doing well, because as we've seen every time there's been a major set of regs, that team is going to be all right for a fair few years, and you don't want to be stuck with a team that is going to take a fair few years to get back to the front. So maybe this is all just smoke and mirrors, and it's nothing to do with changing for next year, and it's just beginning the conversations for the future.
And if you were managing Max Verstappen, just take the contracts out of it, which do you think is going to be the most competitive team next year? I think it's impossible to say.
Oh, it is. I wish I had a crystal ball, yeah, because I think that's why it's hard to be a driver manager, because you've got to advise your driver where best to go, but you can only make educated guesses. Now, on one side, you can say, well, Mercedes have always built the best power unit in this recent memory, so odds are they're going to build the best power unit. So that's one plus for Mercedes, and Red Bull are doing their own power unit for the first time, as we've seen from recent new entrants like Honda. It's a struggle to come in. So that's one part. The other side is Max knows Red Bull super well. Like, they love him. So you're always going to be in a better scenario when the team loves you, in the way that Lando, I think, is grown at McLaren because he's so comfortable there. So without trying to dodge the question, I just think it's a really difficult answer, and that's probably why there's maybe a bit of dithering at the minute, because Max might not know exactly which way he wants to jump. But I still think he's leaning towards staying at Red Bull for next year. I think he is considering what he would do in the future, because he wants to win. Of course, he wants to get the most money he can get, but I don't think he races to get the most money. I think he races to win.
He races to win, and Raymond Vermeulen races to get him the most
exactly.
money. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it's even more complicated. Then it's not only the engine, it's the engine and the car changing at the same time. So you need to figure out who was going to have the best engine. And what if the car is not good enough? And then you waste a move. If I was Max Verstappen, if I was as good as him, I would wait and see what's going to happen next year. And whatever contracts there are, they will be done by the time he decides if he's going to move. Okay, I'm seeing Aramco, Aston Martin in front of me. Oh, this is the best thing. This is where I'm going. Whatever they have there, cancel. Max Verstappen is coming. I think he's got this power and he's got to use it.
Can you imagine George Russell and Max Verstappen in the same team?
It'd be box office, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it would be box office. This episode is sponsored by Vanta. In this ever-evolving digital world, proving your business is secure isn't just important, it's essential. Whether you're a startup founder or managing security at scale, the ability to demonstrate trust can open doors to bigger deals faster. And that's why so many companies turn to Vanta for help. Vanta is a trust management platform that helps businesses automate and simplify security and compliance. Whether you're managing your first SOC 2 audit or need to meet ISO 27001 standards, Vanta gets you compliant quickly and helps you stay that way. Their platform automates compliance across more than 35 frameworks, and it even helps you complete security questionnaires up to 5 times faster. That means less work, more growth. And the results speak for themselves. A recent IDC study found that Vanta customers save over $500,000 a year and are 3 times more productive, leaving you time to focus on scaling your business. So visit vanta.com/nation to sign up for a free demo today. That's vanta.com/nation.
Early screenings have audiences raving. F1 the movie is absolutely incredible.
Be ready. Ready for what?
From the director of Top Gun Maverick
I'm offering you a seat in Formula One, the absolute best in the world.
It's a fun, fast-paced thrill ride with a ton of heart.
You're crazy, bro.
And a reminder of why we love summer movies.
Anything else, Professor?
Try fast. I'll see you down the road.
Just keep watching.
There's more to come from Austria in a moment, but a reminder that F1 the Movie, starring Brad Pitt, is out now. Go to f1themovie.com to buy your tickets, and Brad joined me on the latest episode of our F1 Beyond the Grid podcast to talk about how he became Sonny Hayes for the film and of his love for racing. You can watch our chat on the official F1 YouTube channel. And the film's director, Joe Kosinski, discusses how they made the movie and shot those incredible racing scenes on the latest episode of F1 Explains. Both of those shows are out now. Just search for F1 Beyond the Grid and F1 Explains on your podcast app. Let's talk Sauber and Gabriel Bortoleto in particular. First Q3 of the season, first points in P8. It's a huge weekend for him, isn't it?
It's a huge relief as well. I've spoken with him at length on Thursday, and I could tell that he was really needing those points, and he really felt like he could change his season from here onwards. 1 year ago in Formula 2, he arrived here out of the top 5, and he won the championship, and he won his first race of the season here. And that was a turnaround for him. He loves this track, and he was confident that, okay, we have the upgraded car here. The car is working well since the Spanish Grand Prix upgrade. I can put everything together, and I can score my first points. Just to give you an idea of how big this is for Brazil, we haven't been on the points. I don't even know when was the last race. It was with Felipe Massa at some point in 2017. My story of the race and my story with his interview are the 2 biggest stories, biggest headlines on my website. My website is the biggest news website in Brazil, And there are no bigger news in Brazil right now than Bortoleto being 8th in the Austrian Grand Prix.
It was huge. He's a slow burn. You alluded to it there. He's always sort of taken half a season to get up to speed in whatever he's been driving. And then, as you then say, he hits his stride and there's no looking back.
Yeah, it was a bit different in Formula 3. Formula 3, from the word go, he was just really quick. And then he had this season of not doing really well, having problems with brakes, with tires. And then for this season, we were talking about it on Thursday. He felt like he was doing everything well, not perfectly well, but he felt he wasn't really managing well the start and the first laps of the race. He was thinking, okay, this is the pace I need to follow and everything, and he would see Hulkenberg in front of him, and Hulkenberg had qualified behind him, and it would be like, what am I doing wrong here? Because Hulkenberg is always in the right place, and I'm always in the wrong places. So this weekend he was in the right places, but still Hulkenberg, he started last, and he finished in the points as well.
That was extraordinary, how Hulk managed to do that. I was sort of so busy watching the battle at the front. I sort of, hang on, where's Hulkenberg come from?
Yeah, 11 places up from where he started. I mean, he's kind of become a bit of a specialist in carving his way through the field. He wasn't actually that fussed when I talked to him at the pen. Maybe because he'd got beaten by Gabi. Not that he isn't happy for him, but obviously it's the ego thing. But actually it's become the norm for Sauber now to be scoring and to be fighting up towards the sharp end. They're kind of emerging as the Williams of the start of the season in the way that they're developing. And that update that they brought to Barcelona, I think it was, has really made this car far more drivable. And I think maybe that has helped Gabi to start to show that a little bit more.
How much better was he today than the other races you've seen this year?
I watch all the races listening to his radio with his engineer. His engineer is working as a race engineer for the first year as well. They know each other from the McLaren program. And I feel that relationship is building up. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this kind of races from him, because they are learning a lot and they are evolving, because sometimes he can be a bit of a handful over the radio, like, leave me alone. He's a bit like that sometimes, and it's evolving. So I can see him getting better, and he is learning as he's going. He didn't do miles and miles of testing. He is the least prepared, even though he is the F3, F2 champion. He is the least prepared driver that is doing its rookie season this year. So it's going to take time, and it's taking time. So yes, it's the best race. I think every race, I'm going to say, is the best race I've seen for him.
I'm intrigued to see where Gabi goes from here, because I asked him in the TV pen, was it a relief? And he answered in typical racing driver fashion. He was like, well, I always knew that I could do this. I want to be fighting for world championships, which I think is an extraordinary thing to say so early in your career. But I think that speaks to the belief that he's got in himself, and maybe this is what he needed. He just needed to get the points, scored on the board, and now he can go and make those big steps.
Because we've seen flashes, haven't we, all season. I remember his first qualifying session in Melbourne. He out-qualified Hulkenberg, and we were all sitting up straight going, wow, who is this young guy? And then it then fluctuated a bit, didn't it? So we've kind of known he can do it. What we need to see is some consistency, isn't it?
Yes, and he knows that. He'll be the first one to admit that. Just going back to Lawrence's point. So that's what he said to F1 TV, because he really wants to, play hard. To me, I said, are you relieved, Gabi? He's like, a lot.
There you go.
There
you go. Lawrence, I wonder where they are in the pecking order now, because there were a few new bits this weekend as well. I'm starting to love what Sauber are doing. Pit stops are bang on every race now. They're a bit like McLaren. Every update they bring seems to work. I think they've got, certainly in Hulkenberg, a great driver. I think Bortoleto is a rough diamond at the minute. We don't know how good he's going to become, but everything he's done this weekend would point towards him being, having a big future in Formula One. They have surprised me, Sauber. When you think for the last 3 years of Alfa Romeo, there was not really anything happening there, and suddenly we've had, what are we? We're 7 months into this year, and it feels transformative what they're doing.
Well, Sauber went through a period where they were bringing updates to the circuit, and they weren't really adding any performance, and that hasn't been the case this year. Jonathan Wheatley was almost feeling guilty, actually, when he was talking to the ped on Friday, because he was like, I've come in, and he's kind of benefiting from the work. Very nice of him to say that, Matthias put in to the team to start to turn this around and make them a team capable of becoming Audi's works team next year. I think that team have always been very impressive in terms of doing best bang for their buck, similar to what Force India used to be like. But they've just kind of lost their way a little bit. Furniture, infrastructure's got a little bit old. So I think this new burst of Audi have come in, two new people who've got experience from Ferrari and Red Bull have come in and have started to apply that kind of mindset, if anything, onto the team. So you've still got good people there. You maybe always had good people there. They're just maybe mobilising them in a really good way. But because we've got such a tight midfield at the minute, you only have to deliver one good update and improve things like the pit stops and what have you, and you'll flip from the bottom potentially to the top. And I think that's what is making Formula One pretty great for us watching it, probably irritated for the teams who are involved. But I think that's probably how they've done it. They've just done a better job than everyone else.
And Jonathan was saying that he's annoyed now about the change of regulations. He just wants to keep coming because now they've found a way with the car. What they did with the upgrades is that in the end of last year, they found the way of where to go. Remember when Joe scored the only points of the season at the end of the year? And then they just took one more step with the Barcelona upgrade. And so after you find, that's exactly what happened with McLaren. After you find a way, then it's easier to make gains. And as Lawrence was saying about people coming in, Formula One is all about people. And it's not only at the top. They are hiring from Red Bull, from Aston Martin, from a lot of teams, from mechanics, across the whole team. And then it's people who are used to different ways of working with better organizations, and that pays off. And it's not only the upgrades, but also the way the team is operating at pit stops. And after some good results, what Jonathan always likes to say, that the pit stops, they show the morale of the team. Of course, he's going to say that because it's part of his job to make the pit stops work. But there's some sense in that. He said he can see at the factory that people are different. There's this spark, like, okay, we're not fighting for last anymore. We're fighting for points, and that changes the mindset.
Not only points, so they're currently 9th in the Constructors' Championship on 26, only 10 points behind Racing Bulls in 6th. Another 10 points, and they would be ahead of Aston Martin, ahead of Haas, ahead of Racing Bulls. It's been, things can only get better when you've got positive momentum behind you. So well done to both Sauber, to Bortoleto and to Hülkenberg. Now, one last drive I wanted to talk about. Lawrence mentioned him earlier, and that is Liam Lawson getting his best result in Formula One, starting 6th, finishing 6th. And just a little bit earlier, I caught up with Racing Bull team principal Laurent Mekies.
I think we can say that he deserves that one. No, if there is somebody that had to work his way through to get to that fantastic moment of today, it's him. Very, very, very happy, very proud for him. He has done such a huge amount of work ever since he joined back the team. It's so difficult nowadays to jump into a car mid-season, and he did time in the car. He's done a very, very good job with engineers and the group and the crew around him, and the pace was coming, but it was sort of missing, putting everything together when it really mattered, and that's exactly what he has done all weekend. It was not a magic lap in qualifying. He did 5 extremely strong laps in qualifying yesterday. He was third, I think, in Q1, and eventually put the car in P6 in Q3, and today that was a masterclass. He's one of the only guys that have managed to one stop. It was him, Isaac and Fernando, and he did that brilliantly. He did that with Fernando on his gearbox for 70 laps. Didn't put a foot wrong, had a brilliant pace. I think he's finishing 4 seconds behind George. So, I think it was a bit of the perfect weekend for him, and hopefully we can build on that to unlock a few more things.
He alluded to something earlier in the weekend, that him and his engineers had found something on the car that has really helped him.
There is always a time of adaptations where you need to understand what your driver needs, what makes him go fast, what are the limitations that he feels in the car that may not be that obvious on the data. And yeah, it's true, they have done a great job. They have tweaked the car again and again. Some of the stuff that they've tried on the simulator last week certainly gave us quite a bit of hope. We put them on the car this weekend, and it was a good step forward. So, you know, we will see in the next few races, but certainly it's all to say that it's hard work. It's not leaving any details out of the pictures, and it paid off today.
Confidence is king in this sport, right? What difference will a result like this make to him?
You know, the confidence, he had the confidence. We can build any nice story we want to, but I really feel the confidence, you know, after the first moment of course, disappointment of the switch, after the confidence was there, it's about getting comfortable in the car, comfortable to push. And that's what he found, and now he will have, to your point, he will now have the confidence that he's fully able to do it when it matters, but we never doubt that. So you know, I'm sure it will be a positive milestone for him to bring even more to the business.
Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lawrence, what do you think this is going to do for Lawson's confidence?
Oh, I think it's going to be massive, because I think he came back to racing bulls after obviously that difficult time at Red Bull for those 2 races at the start of the season, and his confidence was shot. He was doubting himself on all levels, from the things that he would do in the car to the things that he would do out of the car, and that's really quite tough to see someone go through that when we saw how bouncy he was in that first stint with the team. But throughout all of that, Laurent and Peter Barretto were really supportive of the job that he was doing. They could see that what he was doing was the same as what he was doing before. The final result just wasn't there. And I think Liam is a confidence driver. I think he needs that kind of result and that kind of performance to make him feel better. It's not good enough almost for people around him to tell him he's doing a good job. He just needs to see it on paper. And he couldn't have done it in a better place. You know, he was the best placed Red Bull family car on the grid. He was the best placed Red Bull family car at checkered flag. And it comes at a time when Yuki Tsunoda is under pressure, where Max Verstappen's future is, you know, up in the air. It honestly could not have been a more perfect story for him.
And also I saw him, I don't know if you've seen on the pen, he left the pen to go and speak to his team. He really wanted to talk to them. Oh, you see Fernando was very, very close to me the whole race, because it wasn't an easy race for him, because Fernando was on his DRS for the whole race. And little did he know that Fernando was not planning to overtake him, because he had no pace. So his plan was to stick to the DRS for 70 laps. I don't know for how long. That's what he did. But he was like, oh, Fernando was here, and he was so excited. You could see this shift in momentum, and let's see if he can bring it to Silverstone as well.
So well done to Liam from all of us. Well, guys, thank you both very much for your time. It's been great to have you on the show again. Can we end it the traditional way? Driver of the day. Bortoleto got it on the telly. Are you going to disagree with that, Ju?
I don't want to lose my passport.
So I thought Gabi did a great job, and I was debating them between Liam and Lando, because I think what was impressive for me with Liam was just the pressure that he is under, and I can't imagine what it's like to be a Red Bull driver at any point in your career. So I think what he did today was great, but I think it's difficult to look past a driver in Lando who had that accident, who felt so bad that he let his team down, his family down essentially in the last race, and he's come back and he's basically done exactly what he needed to do. So for me, that lap in quali, well, both laps good enough for pole, were outstanding, and I think the performance that he put in today, holding off Oscar and not making a mistake, he said there were little mistakes but not to the point where it cost him, was extraordinary.
I think the thing is that there were a lot of good drives today. Actually, I think Norris, as you say, was brilliant. Lawson, yes. Bortoleto.
Fernando
Alonso
did really, really well.
What a great job by Fernando Alonso. Even Ocon bringing it through. And I also, Oscar Piastri, I feel he's been the second McLaren all weekend, and I thought he was bang on the pace throughout that Grand Prix. And as a result, when he walked past us earlier, I saw he looked like a guy who was satisfied, happy even, with P2 because of the pace that he found in that car. So you're saying Lando, aren't you, Lawrence? Yeah. You're saying Bortoleto, aren't you, Ju?
Yes.
To say someone different, I'm going to put Lawson out there. I thought it was huge for him. And I'm really excited to see what he can do at Silverstone, because I think that is a real shot in the arm for him. Well, guys, thank you very much again. And I'll see you at Silverstone in the hot weather, the heat wave that we're having in the UK.
Hopefully.
Bring your sun cream.
Well, what a weekend it's been here in Austria, and the great news for us is that we've got plenty more thrilling races to look forward to here in Spielberg, because Formula One's announced an extension to the Austrian Grand Prix contract, which means this race will be on the calendar until at least 2041. And for more reaction and analysis from here in Austria, go to Formula1.com or the official F1 app, and you can watch the highlights on the official F1 YouTube channel. We'll be back on Thursday with our preview of next weekend's British Grand Prix, but for now, thank you very much for listening. F1 Nation is produced by Formula One and Audioboom Studios.